She refused the Galaxy Peace Treaty. The chamber was designed to break wills. It wasn't enough that it was bigger than most cities. It wasn't enough that gravity subtly shifted with every step, calibrated to remind visitors they were not at home. The Galactic Accord believed fear should be architectural. All was just fear with better lighting. 200 alien empires were represented here. Flesh. Crystal. Gas-bound intelligences wrapped in containment fields. Ancient warlords pretending to be diplomats. Predators wearing silk. And at the center of it all stood one human woman who hadn't bowed once. Ambassador Alara Vaz adjusted the sleeve of her dark coat and waited while the translation lag finished crawling through 12 incompatible nervous systems. She looked bored. That bothered them more than defiance ever could. Above her, the Concordance speaker unfolded. Vethkar was old, older than some stars humanity still hadn't mapped. A towering crystalline entity suspended in a lattice of light, each facet glowing with authority earned through conquest disguised as cooperation. Ambassador Voss of Earth. The speaker resonated, its voice bypassing ears and vibrating directly inside skulls. You stand before the unified will of the galaxy. This assembly has tolerated your species' independence. That patience has ended. Alara nodded politely, as if listening to a quarterly earnings report. I figured this wasn't a courtesy call, she said. A ripple of discomfort passed through the delegates. Human casualness translated poorly. Vethkar continued. The Concordance offers humanity full member status. Protection under our fleets. Access to our technology. An end to conflict at your borders. Alara smiled faintly. And the price? The speaker's light brightened. This was the part it enjoyed. Earth will dissolve its independent military command. All human forces will integrate into Concordance enforcement structures. Extrastellar colonies will submit to oversight. Your species will no longer act unilaterally. The word unilaterally echoed, sharpened for emphasis. Across the chamber, several delegates leaned forward. Predators scenting blood. Others relaxed. They had seen this before. Young species always folded here. Alara took a breath. So, we give you our guns. You give us stability. And our ships. You give us peace. And our soldiers? A pause. You give us order. That was answer enough. Alara glanced behind her. The human delegation sat still, military observers, economists, one old man who technically wasn't supposed to be alive anymore. No one spoke. No one flinched. She turned back to the speaker. You're asking us to stop being human. Etheric's combined warlord slammed a clawed limb onto his platform. You are human. Violent. Fragmented. Barely restrained. You fight each other more than your enemies. Alara looked at him. Really looked. You invaded 6 neighbors in the last century. They were weak. We call that bullying. Several translators short-circuited trying to find a polite equivalent. Vethkar's glow dimmed slightly. Ambassador, do not mistake tolerance for equality. Humanity is a minor power. You lack the scale to resist. Your history is chaos, war, extinction events of your own making. Alara nodded slowly. Yes, she said. We're very good at surviving our own mistakes. She stepped closer to the podium. Security fields hummed. Weapons targeted her heart, spine, brainstem, redundant for a species that kept backups of everything. You've been watching us, she continued. Studying us. Measuring us. The speaker did not deny it. You concluded we're dangerous, Alara said. But manageable. Vethkar pulsed. Correct. That was when Alara laughed. Not loudly. Not mockingly. Just genuinely. Then you misunderstood the data. Silence fell like a held breath. Dangerous species burn bright and die fast, she said. We don't. We adapt. We argue. We fracture. Then, when someone external threatens us, she leaned forward. We agree. Across 12 light years, beneath the lunar regolith, Admiral Jonah Hale stood in a darkened command pit and watched the countdown tick toward 0. Back in the chamber, Vethkar's voice hardened. This is your final opportunity. Sign the treaty. Join the Concordance. Or stand alone against the galaxy. A data slab extended toward Ilara, glowing with clauses written in 100 legal languages. Binding. Permanent. She reached into her coat. Several delegates tensed. Weapon locks tightened. She pulled out a pen. Old. Metal. Scarred. Analog. A relic. She held it above the treaty. For the record, she said, this is where most species realize they never had a choice. Then she let the pen fall. It clattered against the floor, impossibly loud. No, Ilara said. The chamber erupted. Alarm pheromones. Defensive light patterns. Psychic pressure waves as multiple species reacted instinctively to rejection. Vethkar flared, its facets blazing. You condemn your world! Ilara didn't raise her voice. We've been condemned before. Usually by ourselves. Behind the scenes, far from the chamber's theatrics, something changed. For exactly 3 seconds, every Concordance military relay went dark. 3 seconds was nothing. 3 seconds was everything. When the systems rebooted, sensors flooded with impossible readings. Human fleet signatures multiplied. Not one armada. Hundreds. Emerging from asteroid belts once deemed uninhabitable. From gas giants thought too unstable to hide in. From hollowed moons and drifting shipyards disguised as wreckage. Earth hadn't been idle. Earth had been busy. Vethkar's light stuttered. This violates every projection. Ilara turned toward the exit. Your projections assumed we wanted your approval. She paused, one hand on the threshold. You asked for our soldiers? She said. You don't get to decide when we deploy them. The human delegation rose as one and followed her out. Behind them, Concordance tactical displays lit up with red. Somewhere on the edge of known space, the first Concordance battle station shattered under a coordinated strike that used mining lasers, civilian hulls, and one brutally efficient truth. Humanity had never come to join the galaxy. They had come to see who would try to own them. And now they had their answer. The war nobody saw coming. The galaxy had fought wars before. Entire civilizations had risen and fallen under the weight of fleets and treaties and betrayals. The Concordance was proud of its history, decades of perfect doctrine, flawless projections, and a military that obeyed orders without question. And then humans showed up. Because humans didn't fight like anyone expected. Concordance admirals had prepared for predictable escalation, overwhelm, negotiate, consolidate. The human response was sideways. Chaotic. Brilliant. Terrifying. The first shock came in the navigation corridors. Every Concordance ship mobilized toward Sol fell into the same trap. Gravity sensors misaligned. Warp coordinates rewritten. 3 dreadnoughts materialized in asteroid fields, 2 cruisers collided mid-warp, and a supply frigate popped out of a gas giant's storm with engines screaming. On Earth, Captain Marla Rees swigged coffee, leaned back in her chair, and muttered into her headset. Welcome to our sandbox. Meanwhile, civilian fleets, the ones the Concordance had always dismissed as non-combatants, were weaponized. Mining haulers carried rail guns. Freight liners became missile platforms. Farming ships mounted improvised cannon arrays. Volunteers and retirees, engineers and truckers, farmers and students, everyday humans, launched a campaign the galaxy had never imagined. They weren't polite. But they were considerate. Every attack came with evacuation warnings for civilian populations. Every strike dismantled infrastructure, not life. Every human broadcast, mocking, sarcastic, loud, spread panic more effectively than weapon fire. Captain Rees, report! Barked a Concordance intelligence officer, scanning damaged comlinks. Sir, came her reply, already viral across enemy channels. You wanted our military. Surprise. You got our truckers. It became a psychological weapon. Across the Concordance, no one could tell real intelligence from prank broadcasts, false flag surrenders, or staged mutinies. Every signal contradicted the last. Then came Earth's deadliest trick. Not ships. Not weapons. Prestige. They hit construction yards. Historic armadas. Victory monuments. Strategic archives. Sites designed to inspire fear and loyalty in the enemy. Earth's fleets shattered these symbols systematically, proving something terrifying. The humans didn't need to destroy your empire to make you afraid. They only needed to destroy your pride. The culmination came at Vraxo's gate. 3 Concordance armadas converged to annihilate what they thought was a minor human expedition fleet. It wasn't. The fleet was a decoy. Packed hulls of volunteer retirees and students, laden with drones. They died spectacularly, buying exactly 6 minutes. 6 minutes for the real fleet, battle-hardened warships, stealth frigates, and drone swarms, to strike behind enemy lines. Chaos reigned. The Concordance's doctrine crumbled. Trapped between their own disorganized fleets and Earth's sudden ambushes, their admirals were left yelling at screens, desperate for orders that no longer mattered. Human boarding parties were the final humiliation. They didn't kill. Not always. They captured. Reprogrammed Concordance warships mid-battle. Turned entire armadas against their own command structures. Aliens who had conquered galaxies now found themselves working under the unpredictable, chaotic, terrifying logic of humans. Admiral Hale's voice cut across every intercepted channel, calm, cold, and efficient. You asked for soldiers? You're meeting enforcers. It didn't make sense to the Concordance. It made sense to humans. And humans always got their sense right, eventually. By the time the Concordance realized what was happening, their empire was already fragmented. Civil war erupted among younger species who refused to fight for a system they saw as falling. Planets switched sides mid-battle. Flagships surrendered without orders. And Earth? Earth sat back, calculating the next move, smiling quietly as the galaxy exploded around them. Because they hadn't just refused a treaty. They had shown the galaxy what it meant to underestimate humans, and the galaxy would never forget it. The shocking truth. 9 months into the war, the Concordance began to realize something no intelligence briefing had ever prepared them for. They had decrypted human deep archive transmissions, expecting military strategy, fleet movements, precise coordinates. What they found instead was chaos. And genius. And a moral code no one had predicted. Humanity wasn't just fighting. Humanity was restructuring. The archives revealed that every sabotage, every ambush, every psychological broadcast had a method behind it, less about conquest, more about liberation. Civilian evacuation routes had been mapped in advance, entire alien colonies warned and protected. Infrastructure was hit hard, but lives were spared. Every strike was surgical, designed to break the Concordance's narrative of invincibility without annihilating populations. And then came the crown jewel, governance sabotage. The Concordance Central Command AI, the supposed brain of the galaxy, had been systematically isolated, corrupted, and replaced in increments. Not to destroy it. Not to enslave it. To replace it with choice. Every smaller species suddenly had a say, every bureaucrat found their authority challenged, every warlord realized that their orders could be ignored by their own people. Civil war erupted across the empire like wildfire. Factions that had once bowed to the Concordance elite turned against each other. Entire sectors refused to engage in battle. Species that had been conscripted for centuries were suddenly free to decide who they served. Elara Vos broadcast a message galaxy-wide. We didn't refuse your peace treaty because we hate peace. We refused because peace without choice is just quiet slavery. The effect was instantaneous. Systems switched allegiances mid-conflict. Fleets refused to fire. Armadas that had hunted humans for decades suddenly found themselves disarmed and confused. And then the Concordance made the mistake they had always made with humans. They underestimated their resilience. Intercepted files revealed a horrifying truth to Voss. The Concordance had studied humanity for over 4 centuries, waiting, collecting data, preparing to recruit Earth's species as a permanent military force for the galaxy. They believed humans would be the perfect enforcers. Calm, predictable, brutal when needed. Instead, humans refused to comply. And in that refusal lay the ultimate weapon, unpredictability. Elara read the files and laughed for 10 straight minutes. Not mockingly. Not with derision. Pure, feral joy. Then she gave the orders. Total escalation. Not conquest, not annihilation, restoration. A galaxy-wide reset, using human ingenuity and morality in equal measure. Ships that had been captured were used to save colonies, evacuate civilians, and dismantle oppressive command networks. Drone swarms tore through communication grids, but the humans programmed them to leave essential life support intact. Psychological operations spread truth, satire, and dark humor. Aliens who had once feared humanity now feared their ethics, their cunning, their will. The Concordance had been prepared to crush humanity in one swift campaign. They had not been prepared for this. And the galaxy learned a lesson older than any star: do not underestimate a species that refuses to be owned. Victory. Or something worse. 2 years after the treaty refusal, the Concordance still existed. But it was unrecognizable. Gone were the flawless fleets, the rigid hierarchies, the airtight bureaucracies. What remained was fractured, messy, chaotic, but alive. Voting councils replaced absolute command. Civil disputes replaced unilateral orders. Species that had once bowed in terror now argued over policy, resources, even fleet assignments. In short, they had become human adjacent. Earth didn't claim conquest. Humanity didn't plant flags or demand tribute. Instead, they positioned themselves as the galaxy's warning, a species to be respected, never underestimated. Their fleets were in orbit, but silent. Their armies remained on alert, but restrained. Humans had proven their dominance without ever needing to kill the innocent. At the final summit, held in a neutral, cratered moon of the Othrian system, Vethkar appeared one last time. The once crystalline speaker was fractured, facets dull, its light flickering like a dying star. "You did not win," it said, voice echoing in every mind present. "You merely survived." Elara sipped coffee, her coat dusted with the faint residue of shipyard metal and asteroid debris. "No," she replied, calm as a sniper on a rooftop. "We survived. And that may be worse for everyone else." The speaker's light dimmed further. "You have destabilized us. Shattered centuries of order. Made the galaxy unpredictable." She smiled. The human smile, the one that had unnerved every species from Theryx to the crystalline Vethkar. "Depends on which side you're on." Junior aides, fresh-faced aliens who had been dispatched as observers, dared to approach. One asked, trembling, "Ambassador, was this your plan all along?" Elara considered it for a moment. "No," she said finally. "We just refuse to lose. And sometimes, refusing to lose changes everything." Behind her, Earth's fleets began standing down. Not because they trusted the galaxy. Not because they wanted peace. But because now, the galaxy was as dangerous, as cunning, as unpredictable as humanity itself. Balance had been restored, not by submission, not by force, but by refusal, ingenuity, and the human refusal to accept chains disguised as gifts. As the humans departed the summit, whispers traveled faster than light. Tales of their cleverness, their cruelty, their justice. And the galaxy remembered: do not underestimate a species that smiles calmly in the face of annihilation, refuses every treaty that limits freedom, and backs that refusal with action no one could foresee. Elara stepped into her shuttle. Behind her, the fractured speaker watched silently. Somewhere deep in its core, a shard of understanding sparked. Humanity had not just won, they had rewritten the rules of survival. And humanity? Humanity had only just begun.